Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your testimony. It's quite an array of issues you have to deal with, so I give you great credit for being so responsive to all our questions. I just wanted to note that past testimony before this committee has rightly noted that our nation's fiscal crisis represents a threat to our national security. As Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and former Secretary of Defense Bob Gates have both noted, our rising debt has implications for both our influence around the world and our ability to project strength. To that end, I commend the diligence with which you prepared the Department's strategic guidance, along with the fiscal year 2013 budget, which was shaped by that guidance, and the initial round of cuts that's been required by the Budget Control Act. Ranking Member Smith rightly noted that it's a decrease in the increase, and we actually had a witness last week, sorry I can't remember his name, but who said that a strategy without fiscal constraint is not a strategy. So I think that forces have combined to create a strategy that acknowledges the constraints we deal with, but also the world in which we live. You also noted that as you're doing this, you've noted the fundamental importance of keeping faith with our military personnel. So I'm going to go to an issue that we've discussed before. In your last appearance before the committee, Secretary Panetta, we talked about the fact that the military's rate of sexual assault among service members is much too high. In 2010, there were 2,670 reported sexual assaults in the military. By the Pentagon's own estimate, as few as 13% of sexual assaults are reported. And in your last testimony, you committed, despite budget austerity measures, to absolutely work to confront sexual assault, to encourage survivors to come forward, and to continue to fund programs that prevent it. As we restructure the force in the coming year, this is a problem we must continue to work to address. As we all know, a climate of trust is fundamentally important to how our military operates, and failure to address it truly does erode that climate. In January of this year, you publicized policies, some mandated by the fiscal year 1210 NDAA, giving victims who report a sexual assault an option to quickly transfer from their unit in order to remove them from the proximity of an alleged perpetrator. You stated that the DoD would require the retention of written records of sexual assault for a period of 50 years to make it easier for service members to claim veterans' benefits. You also announced that $9.3 million would be spent on training to give rape investigations and prosecutions more teeth to provide service members with the protections they deserve. I want to thank you for all your efforts and your commitment to sexual assault prevention and response. And I am particularly encouraged by the near doubling of the Department's budget request for the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office for fiscal year 2012. You have many tools now in your tool chest that didn't exist in prior years. But these policies will only prove effective if we make sure that military commanders and leaders at every level are aware of these policies and are able to appropriately respond to it. We must make sure that every person that a rape survivor could turn to is ready to appropriately respond to protect that service member. And we've been learning, as people have been coming to our office, that some of these changes are not making themselves known on the ground. Lower-level leadership is a key to changing the culture in the military that has allowed this problem to exist for far too long. And that's why I'm encouraged to hear that you've acknowledged that you are conducting an assessment on how the military trains commanders and leaders. Still, we have much work to do. So my question, Secretary Panetta, is going forward, how do you see this coming together to continue to create a continued strategic approach, institutionalizing prevention of and response to sexual assault, making sure at all levels of the military are aware of the tools in the toolbox and how and guidance in their response? And I left you with very little time. If I had to take an answer for the record, I will.
Thank you. Congresswoman, thank you for your leadership on this issue. This is very important to me. I think we have to take steps to make sure that we have a zero tolerance with regards to sexual assault. And you know the problems. All of the steps you outlined that I presented we are pushing on every one of those fronts to make sure that, that we do everything possible to try to limit sexual assaults. I've got, the final thing is really what you mentioned, which is we have got to get our command structure to be a lot more sensitive about these issues, to recognize sexual assault when it takes place and to act on it, not to simply ignore it. That's one of the important keys.
Thank you, and we'll follow
Thank
up
you.
in future hearings. Thank you.
Mr. Franks.